Captain Elias Vance stood tall in the grand hall of the Xelari Dominion, trying his best not to look nervous. The towering alien warriors around him had sharp, armored bodies, glowing red eyes, and an air of silent menace. The Xelari Queen, Zethira, sat on her massive obsidian throne, her piercing gaze locked onto him. This was supposed to be a diplomatic mission, a peaceful negotiation between Earth and the Xelari Empire. Humanity had only recently entered the galactic stage, and alliances were crucial for survival. Elias had prepared for many possible challenges: political debates, trade agreements, maybe even veiled threats. But he hadn't prepared for this. The Queen leaned forward, resting her clawed fingers on the armrest of her throne. Her voice was smooth, almost curious. "Tell me, human, what is it like to mate with one of your kind?" For a moment, silence consumed the hall. Every warrior in the room stiffened. The alien diplomats froze mid-conversation. Even Elias' own AI assistant, Nova, embedded in his wrist communicator, went completely quiet. Elias felt his mind stall. Surely he had misheard. There was no way the Xelari ruler, one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, had just asked him that. A chuckle slipped from a nearby Xelari noble, but it quickly died down when the Queen's glowing golden eyes flicked toward him. Elias swallowed hard, forcing himself to keep his face neutral. Diplomacy. Think diplomacy. He cleared his throat. Your Majesty, could you clarify what you mean?" The Queen tilted her head slightly, amused by his hesitation. "Is my question difficult? Your species has fascinating ways of bonding. I wish to understand it better." Elias' heart pounded. He was standing in a room full of 7-foot-tall armored warlords, and the Queen had just publicly expressed curiosity about human mating habits. If he answered poorly, he might insult her. If he answered too directly, he might be saying something he really shouldn't. He took a slow breath, choosing his words carefully. Human bonding is complex. The Queen's lips curved into what could almost be called a smirk. "Explain." Elias hesitated. He could feel dozens of Xelari eyes on him, waiting for his response. He needed to say something that wouldn't cause a diplomatic disaster. A bold idea formed in his mind. If he was going to survive this, he had to do what humans did best: adapt, deflect, and turn the situation to his advantage. So, he smiled. "Well, Your Majesty, if I told you everything now, where would the mystery be?" The hall remained silent for a long second. Then, to his immense relief, the Queen let out a small, intrigued hum. "Interesting." Elias exhaled, but he knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. Elias Vance had faced many difficult situations in his career as a diplomat, but nothing compared to explaining human mating habits to an alien queen in front of her entire court. After his carefully worded response, Queen Zethira simply stared at him, her golden eyes filled with curiosity. The tension in the grand hall remained thick, and Elias could feel the weight of dozens of Xelari warriors watching him. Some seemed amused, others shocked, and a few irritated. One of them stepped forward, a massive Xelari male with dark, jagged armor. His deep voice echoed through the chamber. "Human," he said, his tone dripping with skepticism. "Are you avoiding the Queen's question?" Elias forced himself to stay calm. His instincts screamed that this was a trap. If he answered carelessly, he might insult the Queen. But if he answered too boldly, he might step into dangerous territory. He gave a polite nod. "Not at all, Lord." The warrior narrowed his glowing red eyes. "I am Lord Thoric, first warlord of the Dominion." Elias immediately recognized the name. Thorak was a powerful figure in the Xelari Empire, a traditionalist who believed in strength over diplomacy. He was also one of the main voices opposing any alliance with humanity. The Queen raised a hand, stopping Thorak from speaking further. Her expression remained unreadable. "I see no deception in the human's answer," she said slowly. "He chooses mystery over directness. An interesting strategy. Elias almost sighed in relief. He had survived round 1. But then, the Queen's next words made his stomach drop. If humans refuse to answer with words, perhaps they can prove themselves in action. The court murmured, and Thoric smirked. Elias didn't like where this was going. Zethara's gaze remained locked onto him. "The trial of compatibility," she announced. Elias stiffened. "The what now?" Nova, his AI assistant, immediately whispered in his earpiece, "Captain, I've accessed Xilari records." The trial of compatibility is an ancient test used to determine if a species is worthy of mating alliances. It involves combat, endurance, and mental resilience. Elias barely stopped himself from cursing. Of course, the Xilari would see relationships as something that had to be proven through battle. Thoric crossed his arms. "I agree with the Queen. If humans are as strong as they claim, let the diplomat prove it." Elias clenched his jaw. He was no soldier. He was trained in negotiation, not in fighting armored aliens twice his size. But he also knew one thing: if he refused, Earth would be seen as weak. He took a deep breath, then gave a small, confident smile. "Very well. I accept the challenge." The court erupted in excitement. The Queen's eyes gleamed with interest. Elias knew one thing for sure: he was in deep trouble. Elias Vance stood in the center of the Grand Xilari combat arena, his heart pounding as thousands of alien warriors watched from the towering stands above. The arena was carved from black stone, massive torches lighting the battlefield with an eerie orange glow. The Queen's voice echoed through the arena. "Let the trial begin." Elias exhaled slowly. This was it. He had accepted the challenge to prove humanity's worthiness. But now, looking at the 7-foot-tall armored warrior standing across from him, he was beginning to regret it. His opponent, Commander Ralvok, was a legendary Xilari fighter. Muscular, fierce, and covered in natural armor, he was built like a war machine. A wicked smile stretched across his sharp features. "Do not worry, human," Ralvok said, rolling his shoulders. "I will make your defeat quick." Elias forced a smirk. "That's very kind of you, but I was hoping for a bit more entertainment." The crowd roared in laughter at his words. The Xilari respected confidence, even if it came from someone clearly at a disadvantage. A deep gong sounded. The fight had begun. Ralvok moved first, fast, too fast. He lunged like a predator, swinging the heavy clawed fist at Elias. The human barely dodged, rolling to the side just in time. The ground cracked where the punch landed. Elias gulped. One hit, and he was done. He had to use his brain. Humans weren't stronger, weren't faster, but they were clever. Think. Find a weakness. Ralvok charged again, this time swiping low. Elias leaped back, barely avoiding the attack. But then he noticed something. Ralvok's movements were powerful, but predictable. He relied on brute strength, expecting his opponent to crumble. Elias grinned. That was his mistake. The next time Ralvok attacked, Elias didn't dodge backward. He moved forward. He ducked under the massive arm, twisting around the alien's body, and struck the back of his knee with all his strength. Ralvok staggered. The crowd gasped. Elias didn't stop. He was smaller, faster. He used hit-and-run tactics, striking weak points, joints, pressure spots, sensitive areas, then dodging away before Ralvok could counter. The Xilari warrior growled in frustration. "You fight like a coward." Elias grinned. "I fight like a survivor." The battle continued. Ralvok became slower, angrier. Elias, on the other hand, stayed focused. He used feints, distractions, and even dirt from the arena floor to blind his opponent for a split second, just long enough to land another strike. Finally, after a long, exhausting fight, Ralvok fell to one knee, panting. He could no longer continue. Silence filled the arena. Then the Queen stood. "The human has proven his strength. The Xilari warriors let out a deafening cheer. Elias, bruised and exhausted, allowed himself a small smile. He had survived. But the trial was far from over. Elias Vance sat on the stone bench inside the Xilari combat hall, catching his breath. His body ached from the fight, bruises forming on his arms and ribs. Across from him, Commander Ralvok sat as well, holding an ice pack against his injured knee. The massive alien warrior let out a low chuckle. "You fight dirty, human." Elias smirked, wincing as he shifted. "I fight to win." Before Ralvok could respond, the heavy doors of the hall swung open. A group of Xilari nobles entered, their glowing red eyes full of curiosity and skepticism. At their center was Lord Thorek, his expression unreadable. The warriors stepped aside as Queen Zethara walked in, her golden gaze locked onto Elias. He immediately straightened. She was the one he needed to impress. The queen studied him for a moment, then spoke. "You have passed the first challenge, but strength alone does not prove compatibility." Elias blinked. "First challenge? Oh, great." There was more. Thorek smirked. "The next trial will test your endurance. Let us see if humans have the will to survive under true pressure." Elias exhaled. He had barely survived the fight. What else did they expect him to do? Before he could ask, two Xilari warriors pulled open a hidden chamber in the hall. Inside was a massive glass tank filled with dark liquid. The air smelled metallic, like minerals and energy. Nova, his AI assistant, whispered in his earpiece, "Captain, that's a high-pressure gravity chamber. It's used for extreme physical endurance training." Elias swallowed hard. He had seen reports about Xilari endurance rituals. Some of their warriors could survive conditions that would kill most humans. The queen stepped closer. "This will simulate the gravity of our homeworld. You will endure as long as you can. If you collapse too soon, your species will be considered weak." The message was clear. If he failed, humanity lost respect in the eyes of the Xilari Empire. Elias took a deep breath, then gave a lopsided grin. "Sounds fun." The Xilari warriors murmured in surprise at his confidence, but Elias was far from calm. His legs still felt like jelly from the fight, and now they wanted to throw him into a death tank. Two guards led him toward the chamber. As he stepped inside, the heavy doors sealed shut behind him. The dark liquid rose around him, and suddenly, crushing pressure. Elias felt like an elephant had just sat on his chest. His body screamed in protest as the gravity pushed down on him, dragging him to his knees. Pain, heat, every muscle burned. "Stay up. Stay conscious." He gritted his teeth, forcing himself to stand. Minutes passed. Every second felt like an eternity. Outside, Queen Zethara watched with interest. Would the human endure, or would he break? Elias Vance clenched his jaw as the crushing force of Xilari homeworld gravity bore down on him. His body screamed in agony, muscles trembling under the intense pressure. It felt like he was carrying a mountain on his shoulders. Every breath was a battle. The dark liquid in the gravity chamber thickened around him, making movement almost impossible. His knees threatened to buckle, but he forced himself to stay standing. He couldn't fail. Outside the chamber, Queen Zethara and the Xilari nobles watched in silence. Even the warriors who had mocked him earlier now looked impressed. "How long has it been?" Lord Thorek asked, frowning. A Xilari scientist checked the time. 5 minutes, longer than most non-Xilari. But Elias wasn't thinking about time. He was thinking about survival. His heartbeat pounded in his ears, sweat mixed with the strange liquid, and his lungs felt like they were being crushed. Nova, his AI assistant, whispered in his ear, "Captain, your body is reaching critical limits. You need to." "Not yet," Elias gritted out. He thought about Earth, about humanity's place in the galaxy. The Xilari saw them as weak, but humans had always defied the odds. They weren't the strongest, the fastest, or the most advanced, but they never gave up. Elias let out a deep breath and took a step forward. The auxiliary nobles murmured in surprise. "Impossible," one of them whispered. Another step. Every nerve in his body screamed, but he kept moving. One step at a time. Lord Thoric's eyes narrowed. He turned to the queen. "He's proving nothing except his own stubbornness." Queen Zethara tilted her head slightly, her golden eyes focused on Elias. "No, he is proving that humans are more than we assumed." The chamber vibrated. Alarms flickered to life as the auxiliary scientists scrambled. The human was lasting too long. Inside, Elias' vision blurred. His body was at its limit, but he took one more step, then collapsed to one knee, gasping for breath. The chamber doors hissed open. Strong auxiliary arms pulled him out, laying him on the cold stone floor. Every muscle in his body burned like fire, but he was still conscious. Queen Zethara stepped forward, looking down at him. "You endured longer than expected, human." Elias, still panting, managed a small grin. "That's what we do." The queen's lips curved slightly, almost a smile. "The second trial is complete." The auxiliary warriors pounded their chests in respect. Even Ralvok, still nursing his injuries, nodded approvingly. But Elias knew one thing. There was still one final trial left. And something told him it would be the hardest of them all. Elias Vance lay on the cold stone floor, his body aching from the brutal endurance trial. Every breath felt like fire in his lungs, but he was still conscious, still alive. Auxiliary warriors surrounded him, their glowing red eyes filled with something he hadn't seen before: respect. Queen Zethara stood above him, her golden gaze studying him closely. "You have proven your strength. You have proven your endurance. But there is one final trial left." Elias forced himself to sit up, wiping sweat from his brow. "Of course there is." The queen raised her hand, and the warriors stepped aside. From the shadows, a small auxiliary child emerged, her dark scales glinting under the torchlight. She looked up at Elias with wide, curious eyes. Elias blinked. A child. What kind of test was this? Zethara's voice was calm but firm. "The trial of wisdom." Lord Thorak scoffed. "Strength means nothing without intelligence. We auxiliary value warriors, but we value leaders even more." He gestured toward the child. "Show us if humans are worthy of guiding others." Elias frowned. "And how exactly do I do that?" The queen tilted her head. "She is lost. Afraid. Guide her back to her family." Elias blinked. That's it. That was the final trial. Compared to the last two, this seemed too easy. The child looked up at him, her small claws trembling. Elias crouched down, offering a gentle smile. "Hey there, what's your name?" The child hesitated, then whispered, "Vika." Elias nodded. "All right, Vika, let's get you home." He reached out his hand, but Vika hesitated, glancing toward the auxiliary nobles. They were all watching closely, their expressions unreadable. Elias frowned. Something wasn't right. He turned back to the queen. "What's the real test here?" Zethara's lips curved slightly. "You must figure that out yourself." Elias exhaled. "All right. Think." The first two trials had tested his body. This one tested his mind. If this were only about leading a child back to her family, it would be too simple. No, there was something deeper. He looked at Vika again. She wasn't just lost. She was afraid. Not of being alone, but of something else. Elias softened his tone. "Vika, do you want to go back to your family?" The child hesitated, then shook her head. That was it. She wasn't lost. She was running away. Elias straightened and looked directly at the queen. "This isn't a test of leadership. It's a test of understanding." Zethara's golden eyes gleamed. "And what do you understand, human?" Elias placed a gentle hand on Vika's shoulder. "That sometimes Guiding someone means listening, not forcing them where they don't want to go. Silence filled the hall. Then, slowly, the queen smiled. The final trial was complete. Elias Vance stood tall, despite the exhaustion weighing him down. His body ached from the combat trial. His lungs still burned from the endurance test. And now his mind felt stretched from the trial of wisdom. But he had done it. The Xilari warriors murmured amongst themselves. Some looked impressed, others confused. A human had passed all 3 trials. That had never happened before. Lord Thorek, however, was far from pleased. His red eyes burned with irritation as he stepped forward. This proves nothing. His voice was sharp. Physical strength and endurance are one thing, but leadership, this is a trick. Elias raised an eyebrow. You don't like losing, do you? A low growl rumbled from Thorek's chest. You think this is a game, human? Elias kept his cool. No, but I think you made up your mind about me before this even started. The tension in the room thickened. Xilari warriors exchanged glances. Some nodded in agreement. Even Commander Ralvok, who had fought Elias in the first trial, seemed to respect him now. Queen Zethara raised a hand, and the room fell silent. She stepped toward Elias, her golden eyes locked onto his. You have surprised me, human. Elias exhaled. That's either really good or really bad. The queen continued. We Xilari have ruled through power, through battle, through control. We believe that strength alone defined a species. But you have shown us something different. She turned, addressing the court. This human has proven not only his ability to fight, but his ability to endure, to think, and to understand. Her gaze flickered toward Vika, the small Xilari child who had clung to Elias. That is a rare kind of strength. Thorek's fists clenched. This is a mistake. The queen turned to him, her expression calm but firm. No, Thorek. This is an opportunity. She looked back at Elias. I will honor my word. The Xilari Empire will recognize humanity as worthy. Elias felt a wave of relief wash over him. They did it. Humanity had earned its place. But then the queen took a step closer, her gaze sharp. And now, I have a question for you, Elias Vance. Elias swallowed. Here we go. The queen's lips curled slightly. Tell me, what is it truly like to mate with a human? The room went dead silent. Warriors, nobles, even Thorek, all eyes were on Elias. Elias blinked. Nova, his AI assistant, whispered urgently in his earpiece. Captain, choose your words carefully. Elias let out a slow breath. Yeah, no pressure. He straightened, gave his most diplomatic smile, and said, Well, Your Majesty, it's an experience like no other. The court erupted into laughter, cheers, and murmurs. Queen Zethara simply smirked. Elias had survived the trials, but something told him his real challenge was just beginning. Elias Vance stood frozen as the Xilari court erupted into laughter, whispers, and intrigued murmurs. Had the alien queen really just asked him that? He had faced combat, endured crushing gravity, and passed a test of wisdom, but this might be the deadliest challenge yet. Queen Zethara's golden eyes gleamed with amusement as she stepped closer. An experience like no other. She repeated, tilting her head. That is a vague answer, Elias Vance. Elias forced a smile. Some things are better experienced than explained. The Xilari warriors let out a collective ooh at his response, while Commander Ralvok chuckled. Even Lord Thorak looked slightly amused, though he quickly masked it with a scowl. The queen studied Elias for a long moment. You are a bold one. Elias shrugged. You kind of have to be when you're human. Zethara smirked, then turned to her court. This human has passed our trials. He has earned the respect of the Xilari Empire. She paused, then continued. And now I will make him an offer. Elias tensed. An offer? The room fell into silence as the Queen's gaze locked onto him. "Elias Vance, I propose an alliance, not just between our species, but between you and me personally." Elias felt his heart skip a beat. Did she mean what he thought she meant? Nova, his AI assistant, immediately spoke in his earpiece. "Captain, I am detecting increased heart rates among the Celery nobles. This is highly unusual." "Yeah, no kidding." Lord Thorak took a step forward, his expression dark. "Your Majesty, you cannot be serious." Queen Zethura raised a hand, silencing him. "I am very serious." She turned back to Elias. "You have intrigued me, human. You have proven yourself in ways I did not expect." Her voice lowered slightly. "I would know more of you." Elias ran a hand through his hair. This was getting dangerous. If he accepted, it could mean strengthening humanity's place in the galaxy. But if he refused, he had no idea how the Xilari would take rejection, especially from their queen. He glanced around the court. Some Xilari looked intrigued, some jealous, others furious. Elias took a deep breath and looked the queen in the eyes. "Your Majesty, I'm honored. But let's be honest. This isn't just about me, is it?" Zethura's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of something in her gaze, respect. "No, it is not," she admitted. "But you interest me nonetheless." Elias exhaled. "Great. Now what?" Whatever choice he made next would change the fate of two species. Elias Vance stood in the center of the Xilari court, feeling the weight of 1,000 glowing eyes on him. The Queen's proposal hung in the air like a storm cloud, dangerous and unpredictable. An alliance, both political and personal. He had expected to fight for humanity's place in the galaxy, but this was something else entirely. Lord Thorak's voice cut through the silence. "This is madness. A human cannot be tied to the Xilari throne." His fists clenched, red eyes burning with fury. "It is an insult to our traditions." Elias exhaled slowly. "And what exactly do your traditions say about this?" Thorak bared his sharp teeth. "That a queen may choose whomever she deems worthy, but a weak choice will bring ruin." Elias smirked. "So your problem isn't that she can choose me, it's that she wants to." A few Xilari warriors chuckled under their breath. Thorak's expression darkened, but before he could respond, Queen Zethura raised her hand. "Enough." Her voice was calm, but powerful. Thorak immediately went silent. The entire room did. The Queen's golden gaze focused on Elias. "Your instincts are sharp, human. You see through politics, through posturing." She took a step closer. "So tell me, what will you do?" Elias felt his heart hammer against his ribs. There was no easy answer. Accepting could mean powerful allies for humanity. It could change their standing in the galaxy forever. But it could also bring danger, enemies who would see this as a challenge to their rule. Refusing could mean offending the Queen herself, and there was no telling what that would mean for Earth. Nova's voice whispered urgently in his ear. "Captain, this is an unpredictable situation. Your response must be." Elias muted her. This was his choice. He met the Queen's eyes, then did something no one expected. He stepped forward. The court tensed. Even Thorak seemed startled. Elias held Zethura's gaze. "If I say yes, I want to know one thing." The Queen arched a brow. "And what is that?" Elias smirked. "Do I get a say in what happens next, or is this just another test?" For a moment, there was silence. Then, to his surprise, Zethura let out a soft chuckle. "You truly are bold, Elias Vance." She tilted her head slightly. "Very well. You shall have a say." Elias took a deep breath. He hadn't expected to change the course of history today, but it looked like he just had. The great hall of the Xilari court was silent. Every warrior, noble, and advisor waited for Elias Vance to speak. His next words would decide the fate of two species. Elias took a slow breath. The weight of the moment pressed down on him, but he refused to show hesitation. This was bigger than him. He met Queen Zethara's golden gaze. Then I accept. The moment the words left his lips, the room erupted into chaos. Some Silari warriors pounded their chests in approval, their deep voices roaring in excitement. Others hissed in outrage, including Lord Thoric. "This is unacceptable," he snarled. "A human at the Queen's side. An outsider influencing our empire." Zethara remained calm, though her eyes sharpened like blades. "You forget your place, Thoric." The noble stiffened, fists clenched. Elias smirked. "You're afraid, aren't you?" he said, stepping toward Thoric. "Not of me, but of change." The Silari lord bared his teeth. "We do not fear change. We fear weakness." Elias crossed his arms. "Then maybe it's time you learn that humans aren't weak." For a tense moment, Thoric looked ready to strike. But then he exhaled sharply and turned away, his claws flexing in frustration. Elias turned back to the Queen. "So what happens now?" Zethara smiled slightly. "Now we make history." Days later, Silari War Council chamber. Elias stood beside the Queen as holograms of various Silari warlords and human diplomats flickered into existence. The alliance had been made official, but now came the real challenge, uniting two very different civilizations. One human diplomat cleared his throat. "Captain Vance, are you certain about this? Some on Earth will see this as unorthodox." Elias smirked. "Since when has humanity ever done things the orthodox way?" Zethara chuckled. "He is right. The greatest empires are not built by following old paths, but by forging new ones." The warlords exchanged glances, some nodding in agreement. Elias felt the weight of the moment again. He had come here as a simple envoy, an outsider. Now he stood at the heart of an interstellar alliance, and perhaps something more. As the meeting continued, he stole a glance at Zethara. She caught his gaze and gave him a knowing smirk. Nova whispered in his earpiece, "Captain, I believe you may have just changed the course of the galaxy." Elias exhaled and grinned. "Yeah, Nova, I think I did. And this was just the beginning."